A few weeks ago at the Steel City Comic-Con, Steve and I came across a table of vintage Star Wars figures that looked pretty strange, and once we got a closer look at them, we knew for sure that these were something very special. Fortunately, the vendor at the table was willing to be interviewed, and he's going to tell us all about these rare bootleg figures from Brazil called Model Trem.
So my name is Patsy. Everybody knows me as Patsy. I'm on Instagram as the Trem Father, and I have a Facebook page called the Model Trem Collector Society. So these are Model Trems. They're made in Brazil from 1982 to around late 86. There's 34 figures in the Star Wars set, and basically the company in Brazil made model trains. And in Portuguese, Model Trem means model train. So they had the paint, they had the metal, they had the boxes, they had everything that you needed to make Star Wars figures, but they didn't have the figures. These are all hand painted. They're made with Zarmac, which is a lead-like material, and resin. Most of the figures have a resin torso and lead-like limbs, we call it. And usually they come with screws on the arms. There are versions that don't have screws called Kenner-likes, we call them. I don't have any here, but if you can imagine, the head, the arms, the legs almost have that cylindrical piece inside, and you take the torso and it's snapped together, just like Kenner would be. And now you have a Kenner mold. Then there's also a rivet cap, which has a circle, flat cap circle on the hips and on the arms and the legs, and we refer that to rivet cap. But there's three distinct ways that Model Trem were made. Interesting too that this is missing the tube, but the tubes are actually the Q-tip plastic pieces that they would have used for the lightsabers.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So here is a Kenner. Here is its Trem counterpart. Now, the interesting thing about Trems is each figure's head is on a metal pike.
Wow.
And then they put a little tube from the Q-tip they put inside, because this is resin, and if you can imagine, the metal against the resin eventually would bore out the hole. So they were smart enough to put a tube in there.
So is your goal to eventually get like all of them then?
I do have all of them.
Nice.
And are these like your doubles? They're for sale?
These are all for sale, ranging from 500 to 2,000.
Oh wow. So
Yeah,
what would their weapons have been made out of?
They're made
Just
out of the
resin?
same lead-like as the limbs.
Wow.
After the first series, they came out with another series called Aventura Na Galaxia, which is Adventures in the Galaxy. So basically, it was these figures right here. They're kind of, I wouldn't call it kit bash, but they're, you know, bits and pieces of the Star Wars figures that they made already, and some that they were gonna make. Case in point is Professor Liturfo. He has a Ben Kenobi body, but he has an Ugnaught head with a mask slapped over it. So an Ugnaught would have been a figure that they would have made had they not been shut down by Lucas, because there was a cease and desist around 86, because I've seen receipts for some Model Trems that were purchased in the stores as early as 82 and as late as 86. So we know that definitively they were sold at that time. Then after that, you got Glass Elite, which was the licensed maker of Star Wars figures in Brazil. So that's kind of when these stopped and those started. So her name is Princess Mirna from that series.
Wow.
Yeah, one of the most famous is a robot with Boba Fett's head. This is not the one. It's WUZ1.
Who's this guy?
So that's Rosaurus, and yeah, he's like a mouse kind of guy, because the storyline was it was humans against the animal people. So it was very, very cool.
So how great would it be if like Lucasfilm stole Rosaurus and put in like the Mandalorian? So it's like,
Dude, that would be incredible. And then some of them they did, what they wanted to do, like IG-88. We call that the human arms. right?
God.
And then this is the robot arm, so you can see that they definitely did their own thing, which is kind of cool.
That's so cool.
I was originally a variation hunter, COO hunter, you know, all about Kenner. And then once you exhaust Kenner and you have everything imaginable, there's two ways to go. Either do you go new countries, you know, your glass leads, your Harbirds, your top toys, all these different ways licensed, or you get into the bootleg side of it, and then I kind of chose the bootleg side. In 09, early of 09, I came across a Darth Vader and a C-3PO on eBay, and they were hand painted. I noticed that. Being a variation hunter, you look for subtle details. The C-3PO had a black torso where the wires would be, and it was all hand painted, so it fascinated me. I paid $260 for both figures, $130 each. I'm in. I didn't know that they were lead-like. I had no knowledge of the construction of, you know, the screws and all that. The topical picture to me was enough. Once I got them, I was hooked. I could not get enough information on them. I scoured the internet every which way but sideways, and from that point, I bought every single Model Trem that came to eBay for probably the first 7 years of collecting, and I'm sure I was unpopular with the other collectors because I wasn't going to sell. So I was always on top of the value, never selling them, and they reached astronomical levels the last 2 or 3 years. Some of them command 5,000 to 10,000. So the bootleg area is getting bigger in popularity, for sure. But with these, it's just like any other Kenner. Condition is everything. You know, I can have a figure here. This is what I call a beater. I call it a beater because the paint obviously has some wear. The limbs are loose. There's a chip in the torso because it is resin. This is $500. But if I had the Kenner-like version mint or the rivet cap version mint, $2,500. So it's approximately 5 times more valuable by the condition. Then you add a weapon. The weapons are $300, $400, $500. The boxes, if you can imagine, a lot of people throw out the boxes, so you're looking at, you know, $200 for a box, all the way up to $500, $600, $700 a box, depending on the character, the rarity of the box number. I just unearthed the collection of 48 figures that were insane.
Wow.
Like original boxes, original baggies. Most Model Trem, even Model Trem collectors, most collectors didn't even know that Model Trems came with bags.
Wow.
Little baggies. Okay. So if you can imagine, I think my count, I might have had a couple hundred Model Trems.
Okay.
At the time, I realized I only had like 5 baggies. Okay. So that's how rare the baggies are that come with the boxes.
Yeah.
Well, this collection that I unearthed, everyone had the baggie but 3. So it was just an unprecedented, condition-sensitive collection. I paid quite a bit of coin for it, you know, but I did sell maybe 7 or 8 of them because there's collectors out there that are friends, and you know, you give them the friend price.
Yeah, I understand.
Because you might say, Pat, I'm looking for a Luke.
Yeah,
I'm looking for a Luke Skywalker, the next one. I don't care if a guy offers me $2,000 more than you. If I promise you for that price, it's going to you. See, with Trems, you have 2 kinds of people. You have people that are variation and bootleg hunters, and then you have what's called your focus collectors. So every once in a while, a focus collector will walk into my world because they might have Luke X-Wing and they have every single carded and paint op. But now the bootlegs, they need to have this Luke because they have everything else but this Luke. So many times I'll get a focus collector that only wants one figure of the ones that they collect.
Do you have any advice, any suggestions, any just something to keep an eye out for? Some series?
Yeah, so what the suggestion I'd have is honestly stay humble, make a lot of friends, and resources are everything, and don't be afraid to ask anyone about something.
So you got Instagram?
Yeah, I have an Instagram called The Trem Father. I started it maybe a couple weeks ago. So what I'm doing there is I'm kind of chronicalizing the figures in how they came out, and I'm showing my whole collection, which I've never really showed, like every figure of that same person. So it's almost like me starting a photo library, if you will, you know, to look at my figures. And while I do that, I say if it's rare or if it isn't, what number it is out of 34, and the major variation. So it's more educational than boasting.
And then Facebook, you said?
Yeah, and Facebook, my group is called the Model Trem Collector Society. It's just a really low-key, hardcore collectors that, you know, really appreciate the education behind model trems. And quite honestly, there's some people that don't even have them, but are interested in the story, and they want to learn and maybe buy one in the future.
We can't thank you enough.
Yeah,
for doing
man. Hey,
this.
listen, it's a real pleasure.
Thank you. Like.